What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Colin Thompson Show, brought to you by Not For Long Media. Jack in the back is with me. Jackie, how we doing?
We'll keep going with it, Colin. We're doing splendid.
Doing
It's just
splendid. So for those at home that are not keeping score, every time I call Jack, how we doing, Jack? What's going on? He's my right-hand man here. I'm doing splendid. I'm doing splendid. My Tottenham Hotspurs are not doing splendid, but I'm doing splendid because I am heading there to watch my Tottenham Hotspurs this weekend over in London. So I'm kind of jacked for that. Jack, have you been out of the country before, Jack?
absolutely not.
Have you been out of Montgomery County or Bucks County before, Jack?
You have physical proof of that.
One time.
One time, and we did. I go to the shore occasionally. I dabble down the shore.
Are you good
I,
living are you good living in Montgomery County the rest of your life?
I mean, well, I would like. I'm good staying in the country for the rest of my life. I don't. I
You don't
saw
want to travel. You don't want to cover an NFL game in London. You don't want to. None of that's for
maybe
you,
the
bud.
one thing that's thrown me off is that I forget the name of the movie. It's like it takes place in Sweden. It's Florence Pugh
Taken?
and No, God, it's like a horror movie, but it's like some Swedish. I think it's like a pagan village. I forget the name of the
That's
movie.
affecting you traveling.
Well, it's because they go to travel and like they end up in like it's a horror movie, but like it's literally a horror movie. But like they travel literally innocent. Oh, go to Sweden. It's a normal, great place. Oh, it's just, what's have you seen Always Sunny? Charlie leave Philly. Bad shit happens. It's a memo I take to my life.
I hope you're kidding. Because you need to see the world a little bit, Jack. So we're seeing the world this week. We're going for like a quick 5-6 day trip. It's gonna be great. The show will continue. The show will go on, as they say. And then next Monday, Nicky Pumpkin, Chef Nick Brown, for those that are keeping score, he'll come out next Monday. I'll do the intro live from London, and can't wait. It'll be right after I go to the Tottenham Hotspurs game. Just going to be really jacked up. I just go to a local pub, go to a game, hang out, work out, just kind of do a normal life, but over in London. So I'm jacked. We got great flights, and they're quick. It's gonna be a little red eye, and boom, you're over there, Jackie boy. So I'm fired up, man. I'm fired up. Can't wait. So
I should have worn my Hotspur jersey. I'm a little ashamed of myself.
you should be. That's a mistake. They're not playing that great, Jack. They're not playing that great. They're going to beat the best team in the world, though they're going to lose the teams that are middle of the pack to lower. That's kind of where they're at right now. So that's enough.
What's worse? What's worse though, Flyers or Tottenham?
Oh, Flyers. We're going to get into that in a second. Everything we do here at Not For Long Media is brought to you by our friends over at where, Jack?
The original Fudge Kitchen, shipping fun sweet treats across the country.
Damn
Check
right.
them out, fudgekitchens.com.
Fudge Kitchens with an
That's what I said.
S.com. I know, great job. Kibby, who owns Shots and Giggles, my uncle, he just sent his team making Irish potato martinis, Jack, toasted. How are you, bud? Unbelievable. I know that's not maybe up your alley. I know it's not, but for those listening, it may be. Get yourself some Irish potatoes. Maybe make yourself some fun little cocktails. Boom, whip them up. Maybe a chocolate martini using that chocolate fudge. We've done it all, and they have it all at the original Fudge Kitchen, from chocolate pretzels, strawberries, you name it, they got it. I love the homemade Reese's cups, like the turtle crawls or whatever the hell they call them, like the bear claw, like the giant caramel pretzel money. Ship it across the country. How are you, bud? The original Fudge Kitchen. All right, Jack. Listen, we're going to jump right into it because you brought up the Flyers. You know what? There's nothing worse in life, Jack. A person, an organization where you don't even know. You're just aimlessly wandering along, right? We all been there. We're like, I'm in a tough spot right now. But you set plans, you set goals, you do certain things to change that situation. There's a direction now. I'm headed in this direction. Hey, you know what? I may be heading down because I need to get back, 2 steps backwards to take 4 steps forwards. We get all that. The Philadelphia Flyers, and it's really hard for me to rip things on the show. I don't, because I'm interested in all this stuff. Like I wouldn't mind like being a broadcaster and like becoming friendly with people in the Flyer. Like I see myself in a lot of different things in my future, so I don't like to rip things. But Flyers. What is going on? Where's the direction? Like either tank or get younger and get draft capital like these guys are getting, or double down and try to do a quick rebuild like you said that was going to happen, or a retool or whatever they said was going to go. So I'm just like sick to my stomach, because if they're like I'd rather be a Coyotes fan right now, because at least you know where they're at. They have like 50 first round picks. They're trying to figure it out. They're building a new arena. Like, what? The Flyers play in front of an empty barn. They're one of the most historic franchises in NHL history, and there's no direction. Like, I can't even defend him anymore. That's the hardest part, is like the diehard fans for the last couple of years could say, hey, the Flyers, baby. No, the Devils are surpassing you now by a mile. Montreal's got way better younger talent, and they're behind you. They have a shot to get Bedard, the future next McDavid. So very frustrated with the Flyers, and not because, like, I still love the team. They are like my one team that I'm a diehard fan of. But have a direction. Go down or go forward, figure it out, but don't sit neutral, because sit neutral is the kiss of death, especially in the NHL. You're going to get a mid-round pick. You're going to miss the playoffs every year. You're going to have no assets. It's not good. It's not good. So it's rock bottom for the Flyers and the fan club. And that just kind of cult fandom. It's bad, Jack. It's bad.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like I said, I'm very not knowledged in hockey whatsoever, but it was probably about like a month and a half ago. And Stevie, who's done some work for us, probably besides you, the biggest Flyers hockey nut that I know. I made some offhand comment like, man, this Chuck Fletcher guy is something else, huh? And I got like a 45-minute oral history of the last like year and a half of all the mistakes that I didn't ask for it, but I've all I know is she very much wanted Danny Briere to be the GM for some reason. That was about the main point I got out of it.
And listen, there's a stigma around the Flyers. You got to hire the old guard and bring them back. And I don't think that's always the healthiest thing. So you're bringing this guy, Chuck Fletcher. He's like the first of the old guard, because Holmgren was a GM. Bobby Clark was a GM. These are all old Flyers. Craig Berube was a coach. People wanted to bring back Tocchet. These are all former Flyers back. But you know what? And I listened to a lot of hockey shows. Everybody talked about how awesome the culture was in Philly. I would be cool with that as a fan. If you're telling me players want to come play here because of the culture in the locker room, the fans, how great the city is, and every year they're competing for a Stanley Cup. They may not have the best team in the NHL, but they're really competitive. I'm cool with that. But now, why would you come play in Philly? If you're again, hockey-wise, every other sport sounds pretty good. But I mean, this could be the best time in the history of the city when it comes to winning and investing in your team. Stars like the Phillies have a dozen of them now. The Eagles are arguably the best roster in the NFL, excuse me. And the Sixers, I mean, I'm critical of the NBA, but they have one of the best players talent-wise and size-wise in the history of the NBA, and Joel Embiid. So, I mean, what? And then the Flyers, who you could argue prestigious-wise, like fan cult following-wise, are up there with every other team in Philly. It's embarrassing. And it's not the players. I'm not getting on them. But it's like the new ownership of what's going on. Like, I'm listening to all these hockey podcasts, and players are coming on there saying the culture's bad. It's all a numbers game. So it's the first time I've gone on here and probably ripped somebody in my entire life, because I don't like doing that, because I'm a player. I'm an athlete. It's a player's first show. But like the Philadelphia Flyers, man, it's not good. I'm sorry for all the people hitting their steering wheel. Like, I came to tune into the NHL today. I should have listened to, Spitting Chicklets or Missing Curfew or another show. They're my shows, Jack. Everything we do here, by the way, on shows, brought to you by our friends over at Shots and Giggles. Talked about them earlier. They freaking ordered Fudge, and they're making freaking awesome drinks down there. Creative, fun, great bartenders, rocking out. My favorite thing to do there is go there. Late night, Jack, maybe midnight. Take over the music, have a great time. You're singing country music, sing-alongs, you're hanging out with locals. There's no better place. Super clean bathrooms right off the Wall Street. It's the best spot. I miss it. One day I'll live in Key West. What do you got, Jack?
I was going to say, I missed it earlier because we got too quick on the Flyers. It has been too long since I had a controversial food take on the show. I don't even know if this one is controversial, but all of mine seem to be. Irish potatoes are the only acceptable way to eat coconut. Now, not drink. Coconut juice, whatever, coconut milk, that's fine, acceptable. It's the only acceptable way. I hate coconut shavings.
Okay.
So I think Irish potato is the only acceptable way to eat coconut.
Fair.
That's all I gotta say.
Okay. Thank you, Jack. I appreciate that tidbit. They have Irish potatoes at Fudge Kitchen, and they have them at Shots and Giggles if you want to drink. So love it. Check it out. Spring break, man. Shit, nothing better. Go hide out from the craziness at Shots and Giggles. You meet some cool locals complaining about all the crazy tourists. You'll have a great time. We love it there. No better, more hospitable place down there in Key West. So, again, with the NHL playoff picture, and I'm going to rip through this real quick. The Eastern Conference, Boston, sick. Went all in, got Orlov at the deadline, baller from the Caps, who are really trending down. Toronto, traded freaking for everything. They're going all in. Boston, all in. Tampa, all in. Carolina, not as much all in at the deadline, but they're an all-in team that could win a cup. Jersey, pretty good. Timo Meyer, big trade. Rangers, how are you, bud? Patrick Kane, Tarasenko, ridiculous. Wildcard teams, Islanders, Pittsburgh, The Sabres team's fun. Tage Thompson, how young their team is, impressive. I like Ottawa. Drew's been awesome for them this year. They made some moves in the trade deadline. They're going to make a push to try to sneak in, but man, the East is brutal. It's a shame that those teams couldn't be split up throughout the whole NHL because it's not looking pretty on the Western side. Florida, again, a really good team, but they're on the outside looking in. And then the West, Dallas, Minnesota went all in a little bit. Colorado loaded last year, not the same as this year, but still got some talent. They got traded for Jonathan Quick after he got traded to Columbus, and he was not happy about that. And you got LA, who, again, traded their franchise goalie. Very weird. Seattle, a team that's an expansion team, which is an awesome vibe. And then Edmonton, who's a wild card team right now, who I think is going to represent the whole show out of the West. So Winnipeg's in there as well. So that's our hockey talk for the year, Jack. Flyers, come on. Like, this isn't like, some Bush League franchise here. This is like legit. So that's all, Jack. It's a little frustrating. What's going on in the NBA, Jack? Anything fun?
Well, it's actually a lot of very big things going across the NBA right now. Hit on a few of them while we got some time. Big thing, Philly. They had an incredible comeback against Milwaukee Bucks, who were in the midst of a 16-game winning streak the other night.
Oh, Giannis versus Embiid.
It was actually James Harden who stepped up big time.
Oh.
Dropped 38 points, and then I believe it was 9 rebounds and 10 assists, or 9, whatever. It was 38, 10, 9, some way, shape, or form.
Do you have an issue with Giannis finishing the triple-double with missing his own shot on purpose to get the layup?
Nah, I don't care. I mean, everybody gets all about like stat padding. There's a difference between like, all right, you're wide open, you just chuck it, there's 2 seconds left. Okay. I mean, it's obvious. No, that's what I'm saying. There's not an issue with that. I think people get annoyed. It's like, if it's like a 5-point game and you got somebody wide open, Russ or whoever, they like to yell for stat padding. Just takes it, drives it. Who's actually been pretty decent for LA.
I feel bad for that dude, though. I'll be honest with you. Like, you're talking about a baller. Now, again, everyone says he's not a team player, what have you. You're talking about all-time great player, and he just gets like disrespected for all the triple doubles. Like,
my comparison, mainly from a way he's perceived and the way he actually is actually Odell Beckham Jr. Because Russell Westbrook, it's not talked about much. It's come up recently. He is one of the most charitable, best players off the court in terms of giving back to his community, tipping staffers, hotel workers. He was notoriously one of the biggest tippers during the NBA bubble. He's done a lot to give back. And it's just a shame. Like, obviously, his on-court play at LA didn't work. Well, the first LA, the Lakers, didn't work. It's been a bit better at the Clippers. Minimum contract, I think, is lesser expectations there. Is kind of the 4th, 5th fiddle. But, I mean, he just didn't work out. And it's just another one of those situations where he just gets panned because it's LA and he's next to LeBron. He's not performing good.
Hey, that's a big spotlight, baby. LA, New York, man. The big markets will chew you up and put you out. Guys, going to a game this year, SeatGeek, promo code Colin Thompson for $20 your tickets off, $50 or more. Go to a game. Again, SeatGeek's an awesome app. We love using them. Check them out. Also, our friends over at Som Sleep, trying to fall asleep and then kick ass the next day and rise and rip and roar, not feel groggy and crappy. Promo code Colin, get Som Sleep. This shit is tremendous. You heard me talk about it on here before. Huge fan. So we talked a little hockey. We talked a little, I'm Jack for the England trip. Talked about it in the beginning. We got Michael Sowers joining us today, Jack. Someone you know, someone I've heard of, supported from afar. His professional, the PLL is starting here soon. We did Sowers months ago at this point in time, but we had so many logged up during the NFL playoffs and Super Bowl, we kind of delayed it. But still, a great little quick 25-minute interview, I think it was. We're excited for Sowers. Talk to me about Sowers, man. I know he's a guy from your area, our area, but closer to you and a stud athlete.
Yeah, so upper Dublin grad. He went to Princeton for 4 years. He set pretty much every D1 Princeton men's lacrosse record under the sun, shattered every single one. One of the best in the country consistently. COVID hit. He had his 5th year. He couldn't take it at Princeton. He transfers to Duke, kills it again at Duke. Couldn't get all the way, but I believe he was a T. Wharton finalist at his year at Duke. I might be wrong. I know he at least was one when he was at Princeton.
He was.
But, or at least he should have been before that COVID year was shut down. But tremendous guy, 2nd overall pick in the PLL drafts. And then he was the MVP of the championship this game past season. Now their season, I believe, is underway or just about to be underway. And he's been killing it. He's absolutely one of the top 5 best lacrosse players in the world from everything I've seen. I might be a little bit biased, but I think that's a safe bet to say. And yeah, he's just another great local product. His dad's an incredible finance teacher. Shout out, Mr. Sowers. He was my finance teacher at Griddle Haverhill Horsham.
Well, you can put that to work for us here at Not For Long Media, Jack. I can cut you another check to run our finances for us. That'd be great. What else can you do, Jack? Jesus, guy did everything for us.
Who knows, man? I'll talk about jerseys and not know anything about hockey. That's about 2 other things I provide.
Really excited that Sowers is joining us, and I'm going to check out the PLL this year. Now we live in Maryland. I know half the guys and train with half the guys that are in the league. Bus one member this week, Jack. It's been a little bit, but this man said you grade them off the tape. You don't grade off somebody out here in pajamas. Who is that man, Jack?
I heard the pajamas quote so many times. I'm ashamed. It's got to be like an old school somebody.
Dan Campbell, a couple days ago on evaluating talent at the NFL Combine. Flowers of Dan Campbell. I played with him. I played for him in a rookie mini camp in New Orleans. One of the best tight end coaches in the world, a great football coach, obviously, a great leader, great person, great football mind. But he had that to say about the Underwear Olympics, which makes me happy as someone who won't run a good 40, won't do a good bench press, won't do any of that stuff. So, of course, the guys that are not for it, they're like, combines suck. And then the guys that are for it and then are freaky, good for them. So, bus one member this week, Dan Campbell. Thank you, Dan, for defending us. Guys that don't run that well. But still can play. Remember, half the league's undrafted, folks. 50% of the NFL is undrafted football players. And I would say there's not many undrafted players that are in the combine. Very few. Very few. What else we got to talk about before we wrap up here? Oh, I got to talk about the bar of the week. Again, shocker. Guess where the bar of the week is, Jack?
I don't know. Is it someplace in the southernmost part of the country?
Boom. Continental United States, Jack. The bar of the week this week at the Colin Thompson Show, brought to you by our friends over at the original Fudge Kitchen, shipping fudge and sweet treats across the country, fudgekitchens.com, is Dante's in Key West, Florida. All right, it's spring break. We get it. You want to go down there, tear it up, have a great time, be safe, have fun. Make sure you stop by Dante's. For those that don't know where to go, you're looking for the spring break good time, Dante's, huge pool, big bars, awesome service. Going to be beautiful weather. It's right in the marina. Right next to the Half Shell Raw Bar. Dante's a great steakhouse that's a part of, Prime is a great steakhouse that's a part of Dante's. You can't beat it. Frank and his staff there do a killer job. The food is awesome. The drinks are awesome. It is an awesome spot. Spring break or not. Monday, and it's kind of a gloomy day. It's awesome. Get lunch. Have a great time. Mayhem and spring break. It's awesome. You're going to have a great time. So TVs. It's a huge pool bar, guys. Great seating, great service, great bartenders. Ton of Philly people down there. Ton of people from the Northeast. TV's 3 out of 5. The service 5 out of 5. Everyone's tremendous there. The food and ambiance, you can't beat it. It's a 5 out of 5. You get the DJ rock and the food's freaking awesome. Big pool, beer pong in the pool. Have a great time. And then cold beer. They have cold beer by the truckload. They stuff it on ice on purpose. They don't have enough cooler space, so they're just stuffing, coolers and all this extra stuff to just make it cold. So huge fan. 18 out of 20 Dante's. Shout out to Frank and his staff down there. They do a killer job both at Dante's and at Prime 951 upstairs. So bar of the week this week at the Colin Thompson Show. It's good stuff, Jackie. I guess next year we're gonna have to get you down, bud. Gonna have to get you down to KW.
hear you talk about it all the time. Like I think I sent you a text to the chat. I feel like I know more about Key West than half the actual Key West population at this point. Just
You know,
from
it's
your
weird. Everyone's like, "Oh, it's all you talk about." Well, I mean, listen, it's like my hometown at this point. You know, when you're a traveled person in this business and you're looking for kind of something to hit your wagon to, and you know, your parents move out of your hometown or whatever, you're moving and shaking. Where does everyone like to go? Where do your friends like to go? Okay, here we're going to go here. So yeah, it's been good.
everybody in Bucksmont just slammed their hands on the wheel after hearing you say that was your hometown.
Well, it's not my hometown. My hometown's Doylestown, Pennsylvania, but it's my current town where I reside when I want to get away from football and restart for the new year. So there's nothing wrong with that, Jack. You know, how about a restart, a retool? How about that, Flyers? Shout out.
No, they only use apps to see if their trades are right.
Nah, this poor guy, Carter Hart. You finally find the goalie. God, Philly needs a goal. You finally find him. Poor guy. I mean, poor guy, Jack. It's like you hearing me talk about Key West every week. Next week, I can guarantee you the bar of the week will not be in Key West. We're going to be in London. I can't wait. I don't want to make any plans other than like a couple things, and I just want to wander and just feel the vibe. I'm getting after in the morning, Jack, training. It's prime time season. And then boom, we're out and about, buddy. I mean, London, here we come. Go Tottenham Hotspurs. Glory, glory, Tottenham Hotspurs. I'm bringing them luck, Jack. I put on the Tottenham page today, they tweeted, you know, go Spurs, happy whatever, Monday. And I commented like, hey, any advice for tickets, let me know, because it's a little unique. They don't have like all these SeatGeeks and all these secondhand apps there. You got to like go through the website. So when they run out, they run out. Everyone's like, save your money. Don't do it. You're better off, you know, getting open heart surgery than going to a game. And, you know, like about 15 comments, Jack. Yeah. Thousands of views. I know you like that.
Views are the most important thing, and apparently these days.
All right, we're off the rails again. Thank you to our friends at Actions Over Words, GEEK, Som Sleep, Shots and Giggles. Go check them out, guys, down on spring break. Tell them we said hello. And then our friends over at the Original Fudge Kitchen, the best, the goat of fudge, the goat of sweet treats. Michael Sowers, stud, PLL, Princeton, local, Bucks County, Montgomery County guy, and really just a great dude who went on the Duke and then tearing up professional lacrosse. So that's Jack Connell. Appreciate you, brother. Appreciate all our shows and everyone to make these possible. I'm Colin Thompson. Hope everyone has a great week. Oh, Jack, you're staying in the interview.
Yeah, why not?
And we're going to just take this absolutely live. Mike, Jack usually leaves every interview and I do the interview, and it's funny. So Adam Schefter comes on and he wants to be in the pre-show, but certain people don't come on. He doesn't want to be in the pre-show. And now that you're on, Jack's on. So Jack, since you're on and we didn't communicate that you were going to be staying on the show, can you introduce the gentleman joining us today?
Yeah, we got Upper Dublin. We'll start with the most important. Upper Dublin grad, Princeton, Duke lacrosse alum, current attack for the Waterdogs, PLL championship MVP, Michael Sowers, one of like 5% of his total accolades over the last several years.
You've been tearing it up, Mike, huh?
I've been trying to. I feel like legs still working good, body still feels healthy. So hopefully just kind of hit my prime here.
I hear you, man. I hear you. I'm trying to tell myself I'm hitting my prime too at 29, but I'm on the latter half for tight end in the NFL.
That is the prime right there. I'm thinking I'm hoping Brady years. You know, I'm playing until I'm 45. Play with my son, hopefully.
Hey, you know what? The world of sports is getting softer and softer and softer, which is for the great players. It's only better for guys like yourself. And not that I'm not saying you're soft, but I'm saying that the violence of games is different, right? Or quarterbacks like Brady, like if he gets touched, it's a flag. Back in the day, playing Romans football, it was highly encouraged for me to like hit the quarterback like 3 seconds after he threw the football. Have you seen that translation over into lacrosse where, you know, there's different penalties now than they were when you were growing up or when you started youth sports or even when college now into pro?
Yeah, you know, I think that in lacrosse especially, I think at the college game, they've really tried to clean that up. I think just with like the head injury kind of phenomenon that's been going on with contact sports, like that's really been a focus. Now, it's a little different with the PLL where, you know, they're trying to attract the casual sports fan who is drawn to the big collisions. And so they'll be a little bit more liberal with some of those big time hits, which is challenging for, a guy like me who's smaller in stature, but I like to, get across the middle and usually kind of like invite contact just by the way I play. And that was kind of like the running joke this year for me was like every time I scored, I ended up on the ground after, and like that's the price you have to pay. But the PLL, like I said, like they kind of encourage it a little bit, which that's kind of what you sign up for,
Yeah, I hear you, man. I'm for it. I will never complain about getting hit. That's what I signed up for. There's some cheap stuff that goes on in the game, but again, the game's safer now than ever. I try to tell that to a lot of parents that ask those questions, like the helmet your son or daughter's putting on to play football at a youth level is way better than the helmet that I put on. The coaching is up for debate, right? To me, that's, I always say if I'm ever in a position of power in football, like a Roger Goodell or, commissioner of the NCAA, or if somebody's in the power, to me, it's like youth coaches are the number one priority in our world. Like where we're from lacrosse, there's great coaching. I'm going to assume that because of the quality of players that come out of it.
Yeah.
Where there's great coaching in youth levels of football, the tons of football players, the tons of lacrosse players. Like my wife played lacrosse at Florida, and that's where I started. So now I'm all in the women's lacrosse community. We live in Annapolis, Maryland now. I mean, we live 100 yards from the Navy football stadium. So I can talk the lax lingo a little bit. I know a bunch of guys that played in the league. We've had Taylor Cummings on our show multiple times. Taylor's a good friend of ours. So we're laxers, man. We're laxers.
Love it. You guys are in the thick of it down there in Maryland.
We are in the thick of it, man.
That's Philly's #1 lacrosse hotbed, but Annapolis, Baltimore, close second.
So you would say Philly's more of a hotbed than Maryland?
Well, I'm obviously a little biased.
Good.
So I go Philly, but I mean between Philly, Long Island, Baltimore, those are kind of the traditional hotbeds. I think what's cool is that the game is spreading. There's no doubt about it. And I think, by my senior year at Princeton, even in those 4 years, there was a difference in the guys that I was playing against. Like I was getting covered my senior year at Princeton by, a 6A football state champion, all-state receiver from Texas who, had a couple big-time Division I football offers, but just loved the game of lacrosse. And I think that you're starting to see that, more and more where, guys are these big-time athletes, but pursuing lacrosse. So I think it just speaks to how the game's growing.
It is growing. And even for me, I'll bring up the negative. Like sometimes I meet, some of the guys that some of my girlfriend's friends date, and they're like these stud lacrosse guys. You're not a big guy yourself. And I'm like, man, I respect these guys. How do they do it? I also think that, like you're saying, the evolution could hurt guys like yourselves. You see that happening where like these bigger guys, like I always say this, like Christian McCaffrey, he's not a big guy, but he's one of the best athletes on the planet. He would dominate lacrosse. Like
no doubt. I think that's one of the unique things about lacrosse. I think that really like drew me to the game. Like I grew up in a football family. My dad, longtime high school defensive coordinator, and coached lacrosse as well. So like when I growing up, it was like, what do you want to be when you're older? It was professional football player in the fall, professional lacrosse player in the spring, depending on the season. But for me, lacrosse, there was nothing better than football games. Friday night football games, nothing better. Lacrosse, like every single practice was fun. I used to dread showing up to football practices. And I think that like the difference is like just in like the skill element, and like you don't have to be 6'5", bench 300 pounds and run a 4.40 to be good at the game. Really, like it's similar to basketball. And there's a direct translation between how good you are and how much time you put in with the stick, and I think that that's such a crucial element where, you put Christian McCaffrey on a lacrosse field and like, he's obviously by a mile the best athlete within 10 miles of the place, but there's the whole skill element, and if Christian McCaffrey can't throw and catch, or he doesn't understand the game, like it's going to be hard for him to make an impact. So I think that kind of drew me to the game because like I said, like I was able to separate myself as a smaller guy by my skills and how much I worked at it.
All shapes and sizes, man. I love it. It's a great
100%.
explanation to, the basketball world. And that's what I think makes the sport really unified. Like I said, I'm kind of married into the lacrosse community. My wife's from Houston, Texas. Talk about the game spreading.
Wow.
She's the freak athlete who picked up a stick and went to all these tournaments up in the Northeast and ended up getting them, scholarships and going to Florida over like Northwestern and I think Duke and Stanford. So, like she came from that environment of like a really football world and like soccer and like, do I go and be go to a sorority because I'm like a football person in the SEC? And like, thank God that has grown to the SEC. We never would have met. But how do you think the game is growing collegiately? Because it's expanding now. Arizona State, our friend was a lacrosse coach for the women's team there. There's a women's team at Stanford. I know the women's game. There's a women's team at Vanderbilt. There's a women's team at Florida. Scholarship. How do you think it's expanding in men's and women's?
I think that on the women's side, they've done a great job of pushing it to the Pac-12, to the SEC, really across the country. The men's side, I think the growth is stymied a little bit. And I'm not really sure like what it is or what
probably Title IX.
Yeah. And that has it. I think
when are they going to the SEC? When are they going to Miami?
Listen,
Duke, no one's going to Duke anymore. I'm sorry, Duke. I'm going right to Miami.
100%. I mean, you go down south, you go out to Stanford. Like Stanford would dominate the sport of men's lacrosse. Who wouldn't want to go out there? And I think, like you said, some of it has to do with Title IX. I think another big thing is like, lacrosse for the longest time has been like a Northeast prep school sport, and I think for it to like really expand and grow, it needs to turn into, all right, we're not just bringing, 40 white kids from the Northeast that all went to prep school. We want to bring kids from Florida and Texas and the Pacific Northwest and a couple of boarding school kids, and bring a unique group to the campus. And I think that as lacrosse diversifies, I think you'll see that more and more. But I think that hurts the growth a little bit. Like if I'm an AD, like those are some of the things that I've heard from some of these ADs out there.
Yeah, so like the AD at Florida at the time, Jeremy Foley, he played at Dartmouth, so he brought the team down. He played lacrosse at Dartmouth, had that value in it. Obviously, football, great, that takes care of itself at Florida, but let's add that the women's team down there. I think they're the only team in the country that has their own facility.
Wow,
pretty sweet. Yeah, it's a good setup. So I digress. Take me back to high school, man. At Bucks County, Montgomery County, played all throughout there. I've driven by that school a million times off of 309. I've ran at that school. There's a bunch of NFL guys that train there that people may or may not know about that sneak onto that field and run at Upper Dublin. But, I love where we're from. I'm very, I've traveled, right? I've been away. I've played in a lot of cities that are nothing like Bucks County, Montgomery County, that area of passion for high school sports. Passion for development. There's places to get better outside of your program. We're just very fortunate. And I think, the people that are from that area, you play with guys in college, I'm sure that are from the area. You played against guys in college from the area. You're in pros with all those guys. For me, the offensive coordinator for the Broncos, he went to CB West, played for my coaches. Our area is very unique where there's a lot of people that are going professional in sports. Even Archbishop Wood alone, Colin Gillespie was the face of, March Madness last year, and he plays for the Denver Nuggets. Like, it's crazy. LaSalle's got 10 guys in the NFL, bunch of guys I'm sure playing pro lacrosse. I don't know anymore, but I used to know a bunch of guys. I digress. I'm all over the place. But essentially, it's a really special place. Talk about the area. Talk about growing up for you, the youth sports, being a Philly Eagles fan, like all that stuff kind of coming together, high school football for you.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, Philly, I think, particularly suburban Philly, is a pretty cool like sports area, and just how much weight they put on high school and youth sports. And I think that I was a product of my environment where I grew up around a lot of great athletes in all different sports. And I think the one thing that I've always been blessed with is like a very competitive drive, where I've always wanted to be the best. And I think that growing up with all those guys, like, brought the best out of me because, like I said, like, I was constantly pushing myself to be the best, whether it was in football or it was in lacrosse. And like, I would not be the lacrosse player I am without playing football. Like, there's so many translations, and I think that really, like, I played cornerback at probably like 145 pounds my sophomore year, and like, just having that mindset and then taking that onto a lacrosse field in the spring, like, you feel untouchable. Like, if I could do that and tackle those guys, like, I'll be fine out here. And I think that that was the beauty of doing both growing up. But like I said, I was fortunate enough on the lacrosse side to grow up and play with a lot of great lacrosse players where, I saw the standard at an early age if you want to be great. And I think that, just that competitive drive that I had just kind of like, constantly was pushing me towards the top and wanting to compete. And then, once I hit puberty and my body matured, I think I really shot up. So
it's great point of a few things. One, the competitiveness of the area we're from, where, like, it's weird. It's something I hate it, but I get these memories on Facebook from like 10 years ago. And it's like going to CBUS to run routes if anybody wants to come, going here to play 3-on-3 if anybody wants to come. And like 15 people would show up.
yeah,
Like, that was a norm, right? I'm sure if you're shooting at Upper Dublin and it's the summer and you're ripping shots, there's probably a handful of kids there with you, right? Like,
no doubt. And
that's the area.
those kids are all D1 too,
Yep.
or they're playing at a high level. I mean, honestly, D1 aside, like, some of the best athletes that I knew growing up, like, they played Division II PSAC football, and those guys, like, those are the guys that you're around on a daily basis. So, I think, to your point, like, when you're playing pickup basketball, you're playing against fellow Division I lacrosse players, fellow PSAC football players, fellow Division III basketball players. Like, you're always around athletes. And I think that, that, like, kind of pushes us all.
Yeah.
It's funny. I'll step in. I mean, it makes me laugh because when Michael brings up the D2 PSAC, I know exactly who he's talking about. And they are the hardest working people I know, even just in athletics and just outside weight training, everything. So I could attest to that one as well. Quick little interjection there.
Jack, do you have any questions for Mike?
I mean, I don't know. I'm just here along for the ride. You kind of took all of my questions. My thing was mainly going to be about the Montgomery County-ness of it. But, I mean, you're a Bucks guy. We're Montgomery County. You stole my Montgomery County flow on that one. So I was going to do a little contemplating. You'll have to come back to me on that one.
Oh, well, good. You got to be ready for your moment here. If you're going to crash the podcast and not tell me that you're going to do it with me and Mike, then, hey, you better be ready to get some questions. There's a lot to, process. I think the one thing that you brought up, too, that's really interesting is, like, the bulldog mentality that football creates in you, where, like, there's no emotion. You have to go to the next play. Like, it creates unbelievable advantage for you for life. Again, that's why I'm like telling parents, I'm like, get your kids in football. The juice is worth the squeeze when it comes to, the injuries and all that stuff. You know what? You're right. The percentage are you're not going to get hurt that severe. You're going to get the scrapes, the bruises. You're going to create great friends through physicality, and it's going to give you the confidence to dominate other sports. Because and now, if you're great at football, boom, you just go in that avenue and you shoot off. But, like, I would come off the football field and go into basketball in the PCL. And again, I played freshman and sophomore year basketball at Wood. And we would go to Newman Grady, and I'd be guarding some freshman who was one of the top players in the country, and he would just jam on me or shoot a three in my face or whatever. And, like, Brian O'Grady, a current host of mine, we got in a scrap at practice. He's on our podcast. He's a part of our media company. Like, that toughness of football helped me in other sports. I think it's so cool how you bring that up about it gave you that edge in lacrosse, especially being a smaller guy. And I read all your accolades. I'm like, man, this guy's freaking accomplished. But it goes back to high school football. I think that's really cool.
No doubt. And I think that there's so many skills that are, like, transferable too. Like, one thing that was unique for me, like, the lacrosse off season, it's obviously, like, very different than the professional football season, where you guys are in meetings, you guys have OTAs, like, you guys are, like, constantly regimented. I think that one of the challenges of professional lacrosse is you're on your own outside of the 14 weeks of the season. So what you choose to do in those 14 weeks is really up to you, but you have to stay in shape, right? And so one thing for me, in my first professional all season that I felt was like very important was, one, to put the stick away for a while, but to like make sure that I was staying active. And for me, it was going back to my roots of like, I signed up for 2 different flag football leagues last fall, like playing out in the Northeast with some of those guys. Like, it's rough touch, but they're tackling, and like some of my buddies thought that it was insane, but it's the same mindset of like, if I can compete out here with these guys, and I can take hits out here, like I'm going to be fine come the professional lacrosse season. And like, the footwork in football is very much the same in lacrosse. Like there's so many little things that transfer, but I just felt like that was a key part. And then in the winter, I played in a couple intramural leagues in North Philly in basketball, so it was just like keeping it fresh and making sure I was constantly working on my athleticism. But to the mindset piece, I mean, that was a key part of it, I felt like.
Putting down the stick, that is huge. And it's so hard in our football world because we can't pick up a stick and go rip shots. We can't. You have to have 11 on 11. You have to have a 7 on 7, and that's still not even real football. Like, real football doesn't happen for you until like, obviously camp and all that, but until really the first game's there, where you got to stay on sides and the repercussions cost you money and losses. And like, that's the hardest part about this game is you can't replicate it. And I tip, like at basketball, you can shoot thousands of foul shots. Does it make it easier for you guys? No, I'm just saying that's the challenge of football. It's like the anxiety and the stress is there. That's the hardest part for a lot of players, is like putting that stick down as a football player. The proverbial stick is like, I'm done. I need to shut it off for a little bit, because like lifting and training all counts as football. So it's unique in that sense. I'm more venting you than asking you a question. So let's transition. How did your recruitment go for lacrosse, and why Princeton?
Yeah. So, originally, my first recruitment process was like, I would say pretty under recruited. Like I was, a smaller guy at the time. Also at the time, like lacrosse players were getting recruited as high school freshmen. So, like usually in other sports where it's like junior year hits, like, all right, this is a big year for me. It was like the minute you stepped into a freshman classroom, you were getting recruited by college lacrosse coaches. So I remember that fall was one of the toughest falls I had, because I was always used to, all right, fall hits, I put my stick away. When all of a sudden the fall was like the prime time for lacrosse, and, you step onto a fall tournament, and on the sideline is UNC, Virginia, Hopkins, Princeton, you name it. And, I was probably 5'4", 120 pounds, like soaking wet at the time. So that it was just challenging for me, because you had guys that like had hit puberty at such a young age and body matured. And so really, I heard from a good amount, but majority, like, we don't really have scholarship money. And I ended up I never thought I'd be an Ivy League kid. I always wanted to go to like a UNC or an ACC school, but went out to Princeton, fell in love with it. Like people always said, like you'll have a feeling in your gut, or like you'll be able to see yourself there. And I visited a few times, and like that hit home. Like I could like see myself with the guys like on campus. And it helped. I mean, I'm a home person. Like I love being home right now at my dad's, and my family can come up 45 minutes away from my house. So that was another huge factor for me, but it ended up being a great decision. And school was definitely hard, a little different than Upper Dublin, but it was it all paid off. It was great.
So 4 years at Princeton, how can you put a bow on that? How can you talk about that? It's a lot encompassing in 4 years. You had lots of accolades, and then you bounced to Duke. But those 4 years in Princeton, how did they go?
They were great. They were really like I said, I couldn't ask for anything more from a college experience. I think what was cool was, I didn't make the playoffs one time during my career at Princeton. But every year, like, because of that, it was always a challenge. Like, hey, this is our goal. We want to get here. How do we do it? And originally when I committed to Princeton hadn't made the playoffs since I think 2010. and a little bit of Princeton lacrosse history. Early 2000s, they had won 4 or 5 national championships straight. So like it was notoriously a powerhouse, but there had been this long drought. And part of me going there was, all right, I want to help them get back. We hadn't done it. And so every year was a challenge. Like, hey, how do we get back? And, I think each year we got a little bit better. We were always hovering in the top 20. End of the season, we'd fall out. And then my senior year, right before COVID hit, we're 5-0, number 3 in the country, upset defending national champions UVA down at UVA. We're riding this high. Hey, this is the year. And then COVID hits. And it was just like this whole like wild roller coaster of like, constantly up and down. Finally, we feel like we're going up and everything just shuts down, which was wild.
Yeah, man. I was in the XFL and it shut down quick. I remember sitting in bed watching Rudy Gobert lick the microphone and all the guys will leave the floor. And then Vince McMahon the next day is in a team meeting addressing us all or whatever our head coach was and said, hey, Vince is canceling the league. So, yeah, crazy, man. It was just I know how you feel. It was really tough. And luckily I was in the state of Florida and I could drive 4 hours and be at my mother-in-law and father-in-law's great spot in Destin. It was tremendous. I couldn't have got any luckier. I couldn't have quarantined in any better of a spot, I think. Especially in the, the Northeast during that time is cold and kind of miserable. So no, that's great. So, okay. Light it up at Princeton, the tough times during the COVID year that everyone had a battle with. Why Duke? How'd the recruitment process go of, okay, I just got this great degree from Princeton. Now I got to make a decision for what's best for me now, not just like a young Mike, like, okay, I'm going to go to Princeton. I'm going to stay close to home, but it's like, okay, now I'm older Mike. I have all these accolades. I'm a higher probably recruit coming out of Princeton than I was out of high school. Is that true? I'm assuming.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that was a whole different experience just in terms of like, I remember reaching out to schools when I was a freshman and like not hearing anything back. It was really cool and it was humbling, honestly. I mean, I still remember talking to my Princeton coach saying, hey, like, what do I do next? He's like, well, you're going to play another year, like put your name in the transfer portal. So I think I put it in at like, 4:00. 20 seconds later, I get my first call. And like for the next week, I mean, it was just like bananas, like talking to, getting a text or a call from pretty much every school. And it was wild. It was really cool. It was humbling.
Other than Duke, where else were you looking?
So, I mean, really like it was honestly a little overwhelming because I had heard from everybody and like, everywhere you're going to have a great opportunity and a great experience, and it was just like, all right, how do I narrow this down over COVID to best fit me? And so going into the transfer portal, I kind of had an idea. Now, ironically, Duke was probably the person that like reached out the least. They were like one of the later schools to reach out, like didn't hear from them as much, but everything I had heard, all the research I had done, it made sense that would be the right fit for me for like, all of the reasons. I also wanted to get away from Philly for, a year if I could. And I felt like that was the perfect time to do it, experience something different. And so, that ended up turning out to be a great experience as well.
Did you know Nick Williams down there who coaches the women's team?
Yeah. Yep.
He played football at Towson too. He coached Sydney at Florida, so we hit it off. I was at Duke. My buddy's a strength coach there too. So I've been around there. It's a beautiful campus.
It's awesome. It really is cool. They call it the Princeton of the South. Like there's a lot of similarities with the campus, but Durham is a really cool place.
Yeah, it is. I obviously know it well from being down here in Carolina, and I know Princeton well too. My mom has a store in Palmer Square, and then she's got a bunch in Peddler's Village and then in Cape May. So I spent a lot of time taking the trip to Princeton, dropping boxes off with her and coming back. So
that's awesome. Yeah, it's beautiful town.
It is a beautiful town. So I really wanted to get into, as we wrap things up, like pro lacrosse, because we talk about it all the time, especially on the women's side with the ladies. Like there's no real money in it, but the men are making a little bit of money. First off, congrats on an unreal year, dude. Championship, MVP, just that's so cool. But talk to me about the business side of it, because that is so unique. Like, how's it going? What's the future look like? How are you guys treated? Are they ever thinking about putting facilities in places? Like, what's the next step for men's professional lacrosse?
Yeah, I mean that's the $1 million question right there. You know, you know, it is unique where, you know, like I said, you're doing it. First of all, it's like 14 weeks a year in the summer. And outside of that, you're on your own. And you know, when the PLL was formed and they broke off from the MLL, like the goal was to make it more professional. And they have, I think, in every single category, from the way we're treated to how the league is run to communication, everything that you could want from a professional league, the PLL does. You know, obviously, like from a wage perspective, like we're not where any of the big five are. And so, like, as an individual, it makes it a little bit more challenging because, like I said, like if it was show up and play, go to workouts, go to practice, like it would be awesome. But you're essentially like your own entrepreneur, or, you know, you're doing something else for, you know, the other 3 seasons of the year. So for me, I work another job in commercial real estate, you know, which is cool for me because, you know, at the time when I was coming out, I obviously had the head injury stuff. And so I didn't really know, you know, what my future in professional lacrosse was going to look like. I hope to be able to do it, but I needed to make sure like I took advantage of the Princeton education and the network, and, you know, tried something else. But, you know, for me now, like I love it because it reminds me a little bit of the balance between like school and lacrosse where, you know, you get your workouts in the morning, you go to work all day, which at Princeton was school. And then you're lifting, you're hitting the wall, you're running at night. So you kind of bookend your day with workouts and you go to work all day. And then during the summer months, take PTO on Friday, fly out Friday morning, practice Friday afternoon, play on Saturdays. I usually take a red eye home Saturday night, sleep all day Sunday, wake up, do it again on Monday. So it's a grind. It's a big time grind, but you know, I love it. And I think that, you know, that's what's cool about professional lacrosse is like everybody kind of has their own story of, you know, what they're doing. And like, it's so interesting to talk to some of these guys. And I think it really speaks to like the character of the guys in the league where these guys are able to balance like, you know, 2 different jobs or, you know, they're coaching all week and then they're jumping on a flight from Florida to go out to Long Island to play, you know, like it's unique in that sense. So there's no doubt that professional lacrosse is headed in the right direction. You know, I'm happy that I have an opportunity to be a part of it at the beginning here.
I love it, man. I love it. That's great. How's your head doing? I know you fought some stuff with that. I've seen you do some different things. Talk to me about that, how that kind of started, how it's going for you right now.
Yeah, it's you know, the head injury stuff is obviously difficult because it's not like an injured hamstring where you can, you know, like rehab it. Like you never know how your head's doing. I think that for me, I know that football has always kind of been like front and center. For me, I've gotten all my head injuries playing lacrosse, and I always felt like football, like you know, a hit's coming, you can protect yourself a little bit. They've done such a great job, like from like a, you know, protecting like a blindside hit or something like that. In football, lacrosse, it's much tougher to protect yourself because your arms are tied to the stick, you know, like, and rarely can you like brace for hits. So that was always tough for me. But, you know, I've been fortunate enough to work with a lot of great doctors who are on the forefront from the Q collar to, you know, a couple of chin strap mouthpiece companies that are really pushing the sport forward. So, you know, that's something I'm very passionate about. I'll do what I can to help out and, you know, make sure it's safer for the next generation of guys.
I love it, man. I love it. Well, good luck this year, man. We'll be watching. The best part about, again, getting to know guys in different sports is, you know, now I have a reason to watch, and our listeners have a reason to watch. Where's Mike at? What's Mike doing? And you're a stud, so it's gonna be really easy to watch you. So
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate you having me on. Like I said, awesome to see what you're doing, crushing it. So thanks a ton. I appreciate it.
thank you, buddy. We'll talk to you soon. Good luck this year. Keep grinding, man. That's the real grind.